Welcome back to the Fundamentals podcast. Um, Gary's not with us today. He is under the weather, so we're praying for him for a speedy recovery. I am not going to take the usual time. We usually do like 2 hours, and then I break it down. Do small little segments here and there. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. We all know the national championship is coming up Monday. What's that? The 8th at 6:30. Washington versus Michigan. I don't think um, I don't think anybody really expected um, Michigan to beat Alabama, considering that when Michigan makes it, they usually can't win in the college football playoff. So their hurdle hurd, hurdle in the beginning was being able to beat Ohio State, and then they got over that, and then it was being able to win once they made it into the playoffs. And I'd say to beat Alabama, um, you know, and after making it in, and especially after all of the talks of they really hadn't played anybody in their schedule not being great, I think that was a great feat. Um, a little, not really surprised in the score. I thought their defense would hold Alabama pretty good. Um, I was just a little surprised that uh, how in the third quarter it looked like Alabama had figured it out, and it looked like they kind of could control it from there. And then Michigan figured some things out, and it almost looked to me like Alabama kind of let their foot off the gas and and let Michigan have the chance to fight back. It's going to be an interesting game because Michigan does have a really solid defense, and they rely on the run, controlling the clock, and letting their defense do a lot of the work. So it's going to be real interesting in terms of the Washington and the Washington and the Texas game. Um, that game was really exciting. Both games were really exciting, and I en- I en- I it was great that both of them came down to the wire. There were no blowouts. I mean, we could talk about the Florida State thing. I still feel that they should have had the opportunity because they were undefeated in the Power Five. But I mean, what's done is done. I could go complain about it. Anybody that I'm not even a Florida State fan, but I felt like they earned the right to be there. And we could go and say, well, look what Georgia did to them. Okay, yeah, and I think 15 of their starters were not playing in that game. They were playing with red shirt players and backups. I mean, we know the deal. So with all that said, yeah, I'm not gonna entertain all of that stuff in terms of look what Georgia did to them. Like they didn't even have a full roster. But back to the UT Washington game. That game was really exciting. I I I really hadn't watched Washington play except for the game against Oregon. And what I could say is I don't think it was a matter of Texas and their defense, the secondary not being that good because I think overall their secondary was really good. I just think that Washington is really, really good uh at passing the ball. Like the wide receivers were making unbelievable catches, like some really, really good catches. Um Penix Jr. I mean, he's he's really good. I was really impressed. All his passes, I mean, were dimes. Like he just beautiful, beautiful throwing passes. So I picked Texas, and that's I'm I live in Texas. I'm biased, so I'm gonna rock with Texas against Washington, and I did pick Texas to win. Um, but it was a really good game. Um, I didn't really see, like, you can't really say that there was any flaws with Texas. It was just they played a really good Washington team. And the thing is, with this national championship, I don't know. Like, I can't pick anybody, right? Because it's interesting because I don't know how Michigan stacks up against those wide receivers. I think I think it's going to come down to the trenches. And what I mean by that, I think it's going to come down to how fast can Michigan's defensive line get to Penix? Like, how 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 fast can they get to him? Because if he has time, forget about it. If he has time to throw the ball, forget about it. I don't think that Michigan's secondary can cover what Washington has out there. And so that's where it's going to come down to. Now, in terms of Michigan's offense, I do believe that they will have the ability to run the ball. And why that's important is because if they can control the clock and keep Washington's Washington's defense off the field, they have a great chance. And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Neither team has neither team can be sloppy. There's no room. There's going to be no room for errors or sloppiness. I think if you have one muff punt or something like that, I think it's super detrimental and it's more than likely going to cause you the game. And that's just my opinion. I know that's what I think. So yeah, so looking at that game, it's going to be a great matchup. And I'm excited to see it. I'll be tuning in Monday night to watch that. In terms of the NFL, we all know the debacle with the referees. My opinion on it is that uh, the ref didn't take his time. We can blame Detroit, but what Detroit did is not uncommon. It's nothing new. It's always been a thing. So when you tell me that the coach has went over this with the referees, told them what number would be checking in, and to watch a replay and see the referee uh, literally ignore who was in front of him. Uh, the referee is supposed to be a professional. And so I don't think that there is an excuse for what happened. I don't think there's any excuses for that. And it's unacceptable in my opinion, but who am I? I'm just a fan of the sport. I have, nothing else I could say besides that. Do I feel like it cost Detroit a lot? Yeah, it does. That kind of messes with some seating. I mean, we could say, okay, well, you shouldn't have kept going for two and all of that. But the thing is, if the referee hadn't been in such a rush, there was no need for him to be in that kind of a rush and to ignore who's right in front of you, like right in front of you, like in your face. To me, that's just it. The ref screwed up, and I think it's time for the NFL to say, "Hey, look, they messed up." But I constantly just keep seeing it be Detroit. They keep blaming Detroit. So, it is what it is. That's the NFL. Games that are super important. I believe that the Buffalo and Miami game, that game's important because, obviously a lot of the games in the AFC are important because depending on how things play out, determines whether Buffalo is in or not. Buffalo has to win. We know that. And they have already beat Miami this year. And they seem to do pretty well over the last 2-3 years against Miami. Miami is coming off of a really bad loss to Baltimore, but Baltimore has been solid all year. They have one of the top defenses. Um, you know, obviously Lamar Jackson has been part of the MVP race. Um, I think what happens is we forget what MVP means, most valuable player. And so some people do numbers matter? Yes, they do. No, they do matter, but also is most valuable to the team. Is Lamar Jackson is Baltimore that efficient on offense without Lamar Jackson? No, I don't think they are. I don't believe they are myself. Um, you know, again, no professional, just a fan, but watching, I don't think that they're that without him. People can say all he does is run. He hasn't passed for a lot of touchdowns, but he's been efficient against mostly winning teams this season. You know, I've seen some comparisons to his numbers and Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott has played, I think, 11 of those games were against teams without a winning record, whereas um, 10 or 11 for Lamar Jackson were against teams with winning records. So that makes a difference. That's comparable to when we talk about college football teams playing, with the strength of schedule where that matters. And so I believe that Lamar Jackson is a candidate because we see that most of the time it goes to quarterbacks. Now, if I'm a diehard Rams fan, so it pains me to say this, but realistically, I would say Christian McCaffrey. But that reward seems to go to quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Maybe Christian McCaffrey does get it. We'll see what happens and go from there. Um, Speaking of the Rams, Carson Wentz will be starting Sunday, which is cool. Long as he could get Puka Nakua his 29, 30 yards for him to be able to break that receiving record and get him five, six receptions so he could break the rookie reception record. I'm cool with it. Like, let's make that happen for Puka Nakua for offensive player of the year, rookie offensive player of the year. And let's make that happen. And let's go get that W. I don't know if San Fran is resting their starters or not, but I feel like either way. I mean, we're in. I would love it to be a sixth spot, but either way, we're in. And considering what they said about the Rams, about us tanking and rebuild, and Sean McVay might be out of there, all of those things, all the negative narratives, and even I'm guilty. I'm guilty of halfway through the season saying it looks like we might really just be rebuilding. Um, glad I'm glad that we were able to make something out of ultimately nothing, but McVay and Ryan Morris, they have figured out a way to get these young players playing. We got a lot of young talent on the team. I did not expect to see what I'm seeing, but them guys earned it. They fought. Shout out to the coaching staffs. Shout out to Les Snead and man, let's go make some noise in the playoffs. I believe us. I believe we could be a dangerous team. Um, Other than that, everybody knows this. We're going into the last week of the season. Excited about the playoffs. I'm not going to talk too much about that. Me and Gary will talk about that next week. Once the playoff seeding is done. I do want to talk a little bit about Philly before I get off. I heard some things about some issues with AJ Brown and the locker room, and the team is just not gelling all the way around. That's dangerous going into the playoffs, and it should be pretty concerning for any Philadelphia Eagle fan because the last thing you want is Week 18 and news is coming out about y'all the team not being able to gel. Y'all are still in the playoffs, and I think it's time to just look at like, hey, we're in the playoffs. Let's get it right. Let's band together as a team for the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, Kansas City is kind of going through the same issue. I don't think on the level that Philly is. I think Kansas City can, you know, I have my issues with Mahomes, uh, and not really an issue. I'm just not a fan of the team, and I think Mahomes gets praised uh, in a different manner. And then when we look at Lamar Jackson, it's always something that they try to say about him. Like he's always, regardless of no matter what he does or how good he does it, there's always somebody's going to come out with it not. So yeah, but we'll see. Like I said, again, we'll come back next week. Me and Gary will talk about um, the playoff seeding and how that goes. We'll also talk about the national championship next week. And after that, obviously we'll get into more NBA talk. I want to get into some talks about the USFL and XFL. I'm going to try to hit like 2 or 3 of those games this season. But I do want to talk about that. It seemed to be a good product last year. I enjoyed watching it. Let's go St. Louis Battlehawks. That's the team I'm rocking with. I'm calling it now. So yeah, I am interested in talking a little bit more about that this coming up year. So welcome to 2024. And I am excited about what we have to bring to y'all this year. And appreciate y'all checking me out. Y'all take care.